going? This is Dave Monahan again. I appreciate everyone's attendance at today's hospitality webinar. Welcome you. This is principally for a North American audience, although we might have some folks that are coming in from abroad. Again, my name is Dave Monahan. I am the Chief Revenue Officer for Centriqe, and I'm hosting this with a couple of internal people as well as some external customers that will be involved in this presentation today. If you're not currently on mute, I ask you to go ahead and mute your microphone, and we'll work our way kind of through our agenda here today. So let's take a look at that agenda real fast. I'll start with some thoughts on my front end as it relates to what's going on from our perspective in the area of the hospitality vertical market. And then we're going to bring in Don Helfrich. Don is our Director of Data Science for our organization, who brings great expertise in the area of artificial intelligence and data science and predictive analysis. A little bit later on, we're bringing in Ron Barzelia with Signum Hotels, as well as Grish Bindra, who is with Surya Hotel in Delhi. And then we'll finish up with some roundtable discussion in terms of questions and answers. If any of you do have a question that you would like to post to our group, I ask you to go ahead and do that through the chat feature within Zoom and have that go to the host, just to me. I'll monitor that as we get through the course of the day, and then we'll deal with that at the end of the day. All right, well, with that, like I said, I want to go ahead and introduce Don. Don Helfrich is our Director of Data Science. Don, I think that you're online as well. Why don't you take a few moments just to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Dave. Hi, everyone. So yeah, I come to Centriqe after about 20 years in data analysis in the automotive industry and a couple masters in economics and business that are very heavy in statistics. I worked previously with the Chief Product Officer, Dilip Paradakar, and I'm excited to be here.
All right, terrific. I appreciate you being involved. And so with that, I just got a couple of different slides that I wanted to kind of bring up to kind of introduce the day. My videos should be up, right? Yeah, there it is. To introduce the day in terms of what's going on within the hospitality area. Obviously, all areas of the economy have been impacted by the pandemic, probably none more so than the hospitality sector. And so I guess congratulations if you're online, you survived the pandemic. And I guess now the question is, now what? And I think really the message that we want to send is this is a great opportunity that we need to focus around loyalty. We need to focus around revenue, cost containment. Really, at the end of the day, that means we're going to focus around profitability of your property. And we're going to do that by utilizing some of the great data that's inside your property management system, within your loyalty program, and really within your underlying financial accounting ERP type system to really focus on all aspects of running your operation from the revenue side to the expense side. So those are kind of where we want to kind of explore here today. We're doing this really, as I said, through integrations to those external products in property management. But we also want to make sure that we build tight relationships with our customers. And in doing so, we need to do that by way of really effective outbound as well as inbound communication. So outbound would be the SMS messages, the email messages, perhaps WhatsApp if it's an international audience. And for the inbound, that would be things like surveys, whether that's a Net Promoter Score inbound survey or just a thumbs up, thumb down, 5 stars, 7 stars, and we're able to support all of those. And then Net Promoter Score is an interesting, statistically valid approach towards measuring customer satisfaction, and there's great correlation between increases in your Net Promoter Score and increased revenue. So I think that that's something certainly that we need to think about and incorporate as part of our overall strategy. When we grab that information, when we fetch this information from those, what it enables us to do is to build an underlying dashboard as well as a number of different screens within the Centriqe platform that really speak to the aspects and to the KPIs that are important to you. Maybe that's RevPAR, I suspect it is. Maybe that's occupancy trends. As I said, we're going to be grabbing information associated with cost structures as well. And so if on the dashboard you want to measure that in a more closely manner, then we'll build those aspects into the tailorable aspects of our dashboard environment. If we're bringing in revenue and we're bringing in the expense structure, it should give us the ability to put a laser focus on things like gross operating profit. And so we'll have that certainly probably as part of that dashboard and screens tying back to that. And then, as I said, if you've got multiple properties out there, the idea of having an NPS score for each property as well as an aggregate is certainly something envisioned within the within the product. So I kind of think about this from the standpoint of where we were, say, 2, 3, 5 years ago in terms of old thinking versus new thinking. And I suspect that to a vast number of you, things like, hey, we're filled up tonight, 100% full. We've got guaranteed reservations for every pillow in the place. Uh, we've remembered where you like to stay, and we have this points program to encourage repeat stays. There's nothing horrendously wrong with that, except there's so much more that can be done today with data science. And, where I think we should be kind of going is to form a better, more direct relationship with the customer. Make sure that that customer has a direct relationship with us through our website, because obviously one of the cost structures that we're trying to focus on is the use of OTAs. Nobody would have imagined 2, 3, 4 years ago this concept of contactless check-in, and that's something that I think that we could also play a role. You can see some of the larger properties have made significant investments to do those things, and I think they're now becoming well within the ability of even smaller properties to pull off. And I always talk about things like ICE, ideal customer experience. How can we create an experience for all of your patrons, for all of your guests, that encourage them to have repeat business? Key aspects associated with it. If you take a look at the newspaper, unfortunately, day in and day out, you see headlines like this. This happens to be a San Francisco, or San Jose hotel, rather. It's in the city itself, closing due to COVID largely. What we're trying to do is avoid being in this situation. And so here again, what can we do to promote the property, to cut costs, to increase revenues, so that we're not in the newspaper like the Mercury News there in the San Jose area. And one of the aspects that I wanted to kind of outline we have clients, in fact, Grish, I think, was telling us this past week, how 80% of their inbound reservations nowadays are coming by way of OTAs. And with the kind of fees and charges that OTAs bring along for the ride, it gets significant. And so if we can stop the trend, or maybe even reverse the trend from 20% being to our website to 30%, what's the overall impact to the organization? I would contend that the smaller the 20% circle is probably not going to change, but we can make it smaller in terms of the portion of our revenue tied towards bookings. Now that's just having to do with being level in terms of growth and an adjustment in terms of how the reservations are coming into our property. I'm not even speaking about the growth perspective of forming a better relationship and creating repeat business, both from the leisure perspective as well as from the business perspective. Key takeaway, key finding, you have to have that relationship directly. And so reinforcing people to go back to your website is going to be critically important. Centriqe as an organization, I think, is now in its second full year. Our key management team is Dilip Pradkar, who is our chief product officer, and he is surrounded by some talented guys, including Don that I mentioned earlier, and Frank Camphausen, who is our VP for technology. We all report to Alok Verma. Alok has a long history with both Microsoft as well as Oracle, and has been working, like most of us, 30 plus years in the technology space. So we're senior team, hardly young guys in their 20s starting an organization, but rather mature folks that have been around the block once or twice. And part of those relationships allows us to transition pretty quickly into existing customers, and so we're blessed to have a number of restaurants and hotel properties that are part of our system already, and a mature partner network that really spans the globes. We have organizations in Latin America, We have them in the Middle East as well as here in North America. So we're blessed by having good business partners as well as existing customers. So with that, I want to go ahead and bring in our first guest. Ron, you can go ahead and turn your camera on at this point. Ron Barzali is the regional director for brand development with Signum Hotels. Signum has been with us really from almost the get-go in terms of looking towards increasing their organization by forming better relationships with their current patrons, with their current customers. And Ron's role is unique in that he is starting to do some of that same work now in the North America market. So, Ron, come off mute, come on camera. And I wanted, I guess, just kind of open the conversation up with what's some of the things that you're doing to build the brand, build the revenue for Signum here in North America. Could you discuss that for a little bit?
Sure. Dave, thank you so much for introducing me. Again, Ron Barzai, Regional Director of Brand Development for the United States for Signum. Currently, what we're doing to kind of raise that awareness is really pushing on our marketing. Marketing is huge, especially in the changing environment to where we've kind of shift our focus away from having every room always occupied to trying to fill those rooms during those COVID states. So one thing we're really doing to really push that is utilize an Ask Buddy, which is a great tool that we're able to get from our technology partners. What it's doing is really utilizing a chatbot feature. From that chatbot, we're able to gather as much data points and responses from what the actual clientele is asking for. And as we're growing and kind of producing more and more in the United States, that's something we're really utilizing in both Europe and also in our India, Asia Pacific markets. Something that we're utilizing a lot too is the Response AI. The Response AI tool allows us to really raise our MPI score. MPI is huge when it comes to really how to evaluate your property and how to position it correctly with your clientele. So that's something we're really looking forward to, and we're using it every single day. One thing I wanted to mention too is obviously as everything's transitioning, Dave, just like you mentioned, contactless is the way of the future. Technology is the way to go, and operating more and more in a leaner structure. What I mean by leaner structure is really utilizing the chatbots and AI features that will enable a hotel to be productive and successful by also minimizing their expenses, which then in part raises their GOP, which is something big that we strive to do on a daily basis is increase in GOP, raise our RevPAR, and honestly put heads in beds. One thing that we're seeing as a struggle for that, at least when it comes to overseas in Europe, is again filling those places as COVID's being lifted and restrictions are being moved. We're adding more and more different features, and especially integrating Centriqe in our PMS system and our HMS system, which has been very crucial. Again, capturing the clientele's loyalty and capturing their communication is huge to success. And that's how we see ourselves producing more and more in the future, not just in Europe and Asia Pacific, but also in the United States in the upcoming months.
Thanks, Ron. That's great. Yeah, I know that we had done some additional outbound communications for you. That includes both promotions for various things like Mother's Day, work trips, whatnot, as well as outbound survey activity or work. You know, what was your experience with check-in? What was your experience with the checkout? How was your room? Those kinds
Sure.
of things. Do you think that's going to be key? Obviously, customer feedback is always the holy grail. Um, Honestly, sometimes what are they saying? I think Bill Gates is quoted as saying, the best feedback that you want to get is the negative feedback because it allows you to do some corrective things. Any kind of thoughts centered around the idea of feedback?
Yep. So digital marketing is huge in this day and age. Everybody's on their phones. Everybody has some kind of form of communication. Digital feedback is huge. So from those marketings themselves, we're able to really track to see who clicks, who interacts, and what is a different demographic we could possibly hit. Every hotel has their niche and ask and want. Our hotel being more so on that 4 to 5 star luxury side. We want to attract a certain demographic that's not just your everyday transient or not just your everyday worker, but a mixture of the two, kind of a leisure slash someone looking for more so on the upscale side. One feature that we noticed that really worked really nicely was the CTS feature, to where you can actually click and interact directly with the email marketing and or WhatsApp marketing. And what that did was it allowed us to, again, hone us on that particular demographic and make sure we can do nothing but exceed their asks and wants when they do visit our properties.
Yeah, that's great. Um, are you doing specific work around customer churn, and how are you handling customer churn technology or thought processes with regard to Signum?
So loyalty is a huge thing, especially for a brand like ourselves, which started in 2019 during the early time of the pandemic. Customer loyalty is huge. So when it comes to the churn, that's where we really utilize the Ask Buddy or the communication AI to really see what the particular issue was and how can we go ahead and change that going forward. Again,
Mhm.
creating that database of responses allows for a smoother transition from the guest in terms of experience. And likewise, we'll bring them back into us because they know what to expect. Most people that, again, on that 4 to 5 star luxury resort type of clientele, they want a certain type of respect. They want a certain type of atmosphere. And they want a certain type of interaction. They maybe don't always want to see the front desk. They might just want to go straight to their room, or they might want to have a different type of interaction when it comes to food and some different type of deals that will again bring them back. So loyalty is a huge transition to churn at the same time.
Yeah. You know, one of the ways in which we're working with our organizations as well is what we have as an intelligent chatbot or a digital assistant that allows organizations to utilize that kind of chatbot technology to do common requests like, could you please have somebody send up another pillow or another blanket or some other hotel amenity? While it's not been deployed necessarily in your location, that certainly is in the realm of possibility for our customers in the hospitality sector. So, excellent. Well, that's great. And again, I think we've got some of the screens that relate back to some of the email messages, and we'll show those as we kind of get through the balance of the day. So, Ron, stay close. So, I guess maybe the next person I'd like to introduce is Grish Bindra. Grish, if you could bring your camera on, that'd be great. And there's Grish. So, in the area of Surya Hotel, tell me a little bit about how it is that you're approaching things like OTAs and the underlying cost structure tied to that, and utilizing data and technology to wean yourself off some of that kind of technology, some of the challenges, and how you want to approach that, please.
Thanks, Dave. Before I start, let me just give a little introduction about myself. I've been in this hospitality business for about 4 decades now, and my last tenure was with Intercontinental Hotel Group for over 20 years, and henceforth I'm with the Surya. Now, talking about the challenges that one faces these days is that, like Dave said earlier, that there's at least 70 to 80% business that's coming into hotels presently through OTAs because there's no other channel. The corporates are not moving because of the pandemic. There are major issues. So how do we overcome that? I think looking at both these, one has to look at your RevPAR and occupancy. And how do you get rid of, if I may say, the OTAs and get direct booking? That's the key. I mean, that's what Centriqe does. This is what artificial intelligence is all about. Because the minute you get your own booking engine on, you are missing out on all the commissions that you're paying to the OTAs. And I keep talking to a lot of general managers, and each one is cribbing about the same fact that, we are paying high numbers and we're paying high commissions and we're paying this. And so this is the best way to go about this time. And this is the need of the hour, to slowly book directly and save all your overheads. And that's what you do through Centriqe. That's one. The second thing that is really important is your return of your guests. Like again, what Dave said, your repeat customers. To get into the guest history, I think through Centriqe, that's ideal because you can reach the customer. You know exactly what he wants. It is so easy to satisfy a customer, satisfy a guest if you know the choice of pillow he wants, maybe the wine he wants, maybe what kind of a room he wants. And the minute you do that and you can recognize him, the battle is won. The third one I would look at is promotions. You can do a lot of promotions through your technology. because before the guest even checks in, you can tell him that you have a pizza festival going on, or you have a Chinese Pan-Asian festival going on. You have this wine on sale. You have, there's so many things you can. And the best is that if you have the guest history, you know what kind of a cuisine that particular guest wants, or what his choice of wine is. And there you go. You can punch that right in. So that as it is, the minute he comes into your hotel, he's a happy guest, and he knows that whatever he's looking for, he will get straight away.
Well, I think what's so intriguing about where we can go with this, let me put myself back up here. Video. There we go. I think what's so intriguing about where we can go with this is some of these relationships that we might think exist, but we don't entirely know. We don't have the empirical evidence to kind of back it up. So if we can get that individual to attend a session in the spa, what does that mean in terms of them extending their stay an extra day, or spending some additional money in food and beverage by staying in as opposed to going out for dinner? And I think what the Centriqe data science, and maybe Don can jump in here as well, is to start to see those kind of correlations to one another and open up insights. And of course, that's going to be unique to every property. City properties are going to operate differently than rural properties or suburban properties. And U.S. properties might be different than folks in the Middle East or in Asia. And so I think what we try to do within the underlying platform is let the data speak for itself. Don, can you speak a little bit with regard to things like the fetching of external data, the segmentation of those clients, and how sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 7, sometimes it's 15, a little bit about the segmentation aspects and kind of where we go with that.
Sure.
And
I mean,
Rick, you can please stay on, because I want this to be as much a round table.
it all comes down to what you mentioned earlier, is that direct relationship with the customer. And it's known that the more personalized your communications and your promotions are, the more likely you are to retain and convert customers. So the first step, we do that one step of segmenting our customers, our champions who spend the most per year, who visited most recently, who visit most frequently. And then, but from there, there's so much more to pursue as far as patterns, as far as stories in the data. For instance, we have found such things as sometimes those champions, they spend the most, but they're not spending the most per visit. Those are our promising champions. Those are our newer customers that come in, and we underscore the fact that we have to grow this relationship with this group, because this is a group that's our future. That's our future champions. Our champions are going to be there, but slowly they need to be replaced.
Yeah, you can see, Don, I've gone ahead and put that one screen up having to do with revenue, frequency, and monetary spend. Can you kind of go a little bit about how it is that folks end up in different categories, and we go through this AI-assisted segmentation process?
Sure. I mean, what it is, I mean, we evaluate millions and millions of transactions, and by doing that, we get an idea, we get a picture of each customer. And what we find is that ideal balance of who are they most like, who is their nearest neighbor, right? And we allow ourselves to be more focused on a group when we have all like people in that group. We allow our promotions to be more tailored. We allow our communications to be more personalized.
And so sometimes, and I think we mentioned this earlier, where champions, frequent visitors, but people pass away, people's business patterns change. Somebody who might go to Disney World doesn't continue to go to Disney World when their children are potentially out of the house, until there's grandchildren that are going to be involved. And so I think you're constantly in this battle of replacing your champions and loyalists with the promising folks who can be graduated up. And so we go through this exercise on a pretty frequent basis.
Sure. This is not a one-time deal. It's done real time. We're always looking to promote that person from a lower group, an at-risk or a needs attention group, up to a loyal or a champion.
And vice versa, right? You can be promoted down too. So it just depends on where you are. So And as I said, sometimes it works itself into 6 or 7 categories. Sometimes it's a little bit more. But the most important thing is it's a segment that we can market to and shows similar characteristics to their neighbors.
For sure. And to extend on that, you were always looking at those people who do move up and move down, and what common trait did they have? What caused this group of people to be promoted or to be demoted? And we're always panning that data for those reasons.
So I'm just kind of going through some of the screens while you're speaking to it. So here's that dashboard that we were speaking about earlier. You can see that there are some empty blocks in there for the specifics tied to your specific area of interest. But clearly everyone's going to be interested in kind of their customer categories of who are the champions. The 80-20 rule is going to apply, right? 80% of your revenue are coming from 20% of your headcount people. And so there's the opportunity to both identify who they are and to make sure that those slices are staying where they need to be, as well as tracking the NPS score over a period of time so that you can see trends both at the aggregate across multiple properties as well as in individual locations or properties, so that if there's a management change and all of a sudden the NPS score goes down, you have insight and information with regard to that makes that trackable. Other aspects of it here again, revenues and profits associated with industry various classes, and you can see a focus within our environment around things like customer lifetime value. Taking a look at the data, taking a look at the frequency of spend, taking a look at how much they have spent, and trying to translate them back to data that allows us to see what's the potentiality of that customer over a period of time. Don, can you jump in a little bit and talk a bit about how it is that we take several years worth of maybe recent data and work with it to do some predictions?
Sure. I mean, everything we do, we're measuring those patterns in customers. So we're looking at conversion rates of promotions. Which promotions had the most effect on the most amount of people? Which we look at price elasticity. We look at responsiveness. We look at churn rates. Sometimes we think it's good, happy customers stay and bad and unhappy customers leave, but it can be more than that. It can be that group in the middle that left for a very specific reason. We want to unearth that reason and figure out exactly what caused this segment, this very important segment to churn.
Mm-hmm. So we love data. Don loves data, trust me. And so when he has provided 3, 4, 5 years worth of recent historical data about customers, it gives us that much more accuracy as it relates to the underlying predictions that we take a look at. So there's probably an upper limit to that, but it's probably not until you get to about 5 years worth of data. Can you talk a little bit about how it is that we are able to then, using that data, predict future behaviors and how we validate?
Sure. Every bit of data can be used to try and look at the past and see where the future is going to go. And there's a lot of algorithms that will predict, based on past multivariate data, forecast the future. But, the rule of thumb in data science is you never show all your data to the model because you want to test its validity. So you might look at the first 80% of the data and say, okay, predict the next 20%, which you already know. You already know what it was. And then you measure how well that model's performing. If it's performing well, then you're happy. If not, you continue to tweak it. You continue to acquire more data. You continue to tweak exactly what kind of machine learning algorithm you're using. So you never deploy any model before you've completely validated against real data.
Right. And in that way, like you said, we take a look at data, we validate it, we tweak that underlying model. But if we take that to its natural conclusion, let me go down a couple of slides here, we can put ourselves into a prediction mode where we can take a look at the revenue side and say, based upon not only last year's, but also NPS score increases or decreases, and other factors that we determine are important from your perspective in the area of customer satisfaction and promotions. It gets us to the ability on a month in and month out basis, we can put together basically a high, a low, and a likely on the revenue side. But you can imagine as part of an underlying platform that is now doing accurate prediction that is being validated, and you can see in this particular model the beige line is essentially the actual and how closely it correlates to the predictions that we had made. That if we can do that routinely, then we take a look at the expense structure as well. You can see that revenues minus expenses equals gross profit. That we're now in a position where we can kind of predict future profits, and that includes things like starting to begin to see the impact of COVID and incorporating that into the underlying model. So once we knew the pandemic was there, the model would make the adjustments to predict where we would be, even given such a thing as this once-off kind of pandemic. What are the other kinds of things, Don, that you can think of that played a role in being able to put together these predictions in a hospitality mindset, please?
Well, seasonality. Obviously, you want to control all your models for seasonality, for trending. Trend can overwhelm the correlation score of a model, so you want to control for that. You want to control for events, like you said, such as COVID, holidays. Obviously, both standard holidays and lunar holidays. Everything that you have based on your clients, you want to go through and you want to build as much as you can into that forecast model.
Gresh, I'm going to come back to you as VP of Operations of a large hotel group. What would you be able to do with this information in terms of being able to drive the ship that much more efficiently?
This information is always very, very helpful, because the minute you get data, it helps you to move forward. But you know what, Dave, I'd like to touch on just for a couple of minutes.
Sure. Yeah,
is to build your own brand. I think that's very, very important here, because we've been talking about data. That's very important, but you increase your power of digital technology through your brand, and I think that is what is the future in hospitality. It reminds me of many years back. I was at the Cornell University and I was doing a general manager's program, and one of our faculty members, that's Professor Chikitan Dev, was talking about brand. So I'll just go a little bit into it. So he started saying, what is a brand? So I will go and tell you what brand actually means. So B would mean be brave and bold. Mm-hmm. R is for relevant. A is for authentic. N for novelty and be different. And D is for distinction. That means your asset be distinctive from everyone. That's what brand. And this is what technology can actually push you through and take you right to the top. And this is what is, if you marry a brand with, say, Centriqe, or you marry with technology, you are a winner. You can't go wrong with it, because these are the two things that are required today. Because then you get rid of, the OTAs and stuff. You get direct booking, and of course, when you have all the data to help you and move forward.
Hey, Ron, you got the word brand in your in your business title, so hopefully you got that all down. Gresh, that was a great little vignette, and I appreciate you kind of bringing that in. Let's talk about a little bit about that, building the brand, and how it is that the Centriqe platform. So when I think about us, we're thinking really about the profit edge, the aspect that you see in front of us now, the predictive aspects. But then once you have that information, now what, right? What are we going to do? And so you have to have an underlying toolkit in order to then use that data to communicate it effectively to the correct customer or to the correct segment. And so to that end, let's go ahead and take a look at what we're able to produce in terms of outbound. Here's something for Signum specifically. And you can see that these can range from highly graphical outbound email messages, similar to what maybe you have done in the past, but in this case, it's much more tightly focused and segmented with a call to action. If this is being done on a mobile phone, you hit that call button and it initiates a telephone call. If you hit the address button, it loads up Google Maps and starts to drive you there. Simple, easy, intuitive. Some folks don't care for the very heavy graphic aspect that you see right there, and they would be much more inclined towards reacting and responding to a terser message that's more text oriented. but also here again, maybe has a survey component that's tied to that. And if you were to click there, then you would see something like, hey, give us some insights with regard to your most recent stay. How was housekeeping? How was the room? How was the food and beverage? Give us some rating. Now, this is more tactical because it's getting into the individual aspects as well as an overall star rating experience on a 1 to 5 scale. But this could have also just as easily translated into that infamous 0 to 10 question of, would you recommend us to friends or family moving forward? So we're, certainly in the ability to do any and all of those kinds of surveys. So, oops, I went too far. But so yeah, the long and the short of it is we have this underlying toolkit that does both the outbound, and those outbound messages can be through email, through SMS messaging, or through WhatsApp. And then the inbound by way of browser oriented, or even within the email message, a survey tool. And that survey tool is pretty flexible as it relates to work. Could you
So,
imagine? Could you imagine the impact that you would have on a customer if you were to submit a feedback and maybe it's not a very good score? Maybe it's a
ab-
4 out of 10. And it almost immediately through intelligent process automation kicks off an email message that says, sorry that you had a difficult time here. We'd like to make it up. Come back in the future. Or better still, a phone call from somebody at the front desk staff that says, hey, I saw you checked out earlier today and had some challenges. I'd like to learn more. Because we know that when people provide feedback, just by the mere fact that you ask the question, they're twice as likely to be happy. And then if you react and respond appropriately, they're 10 times more likely. And that's how you create raving fans and that ideal customer experience. Because we can't be perfect, even though we try. Grish, go ahead.
yeah. So Dave, I taking from where you left it, this is what builds loyalty. I mean, everyone, even we guys, when you're working in an asset, working in hospitality, a mistake can happen. But when you get this feedback form and you give it to them and they figure out that you understood the problem, I tell all my people that get into the customer's shoes first, take 2 steps back, listen to what they have to say, and then move on. And this is what this builds. So you build loyalty. At the same time, you have repeat guests. You know, this is what guest history is all about. And this is, it could be a guest who wants a soft pillow. Can you imagine when he walks into the hotel, he has a soft pillow in the comfort, he will never forget it. It could be choice of dessert. It could be a cold or hot towel on arrival.
Right.
It could be these very, very small touch points that actually make so much of a difference to the customer. And
Yeah.
these, at the same time, it gives you a big, big opportunity to upsell. You can also upsell through this. That's a big, big one. Let me tell you that. I mean, you may,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So
Yeah.
the way I look at the whole thing is to sum it all up. I think the key thing that this does, this whole system of ours, is recognition. And that is what hospitality is all about. That is what a customer, that is what a guest wants when he walks into the hotel. If you can say, Mr. Dave, welcome to the Surya, you will have a smile on your face. And that's exactly what you want.
I've been a frequent business traveler for most of my professional life, and there was a period of time in which I stayed at a property biweekly, fortnightly, depending upon what part of the world you're from, for years. And I got Christmas cards. They
Yeah.
always put me in the same room. There was a certain consistency to it. Now, can you imagine with a tool like ours on top of what, in this case, Hilton was doing, that I would have a note from the GM and it says, hey, Mr. Monahan, here's that special soft pillow waiting for you. Enjoy your stay. Would I ever go to Marriott? No, for God's sakes,
Yeah.
I had an ideal customer experience. And how many people am I going to tell about that experience? Um,
Absolutely.
I had a similar experience with the Opryland Hotel, who took care of me in a time of need, and I have told that story 60 times. So when you have that ideal experience as a patron, you can't help but share those experiences on with others. Ron, we haven't heard from you in a bit here. So as we've seen some of the screens, seen some of the outputs, some of those, by the way, tied to your property. Any thoughts?
You hit the nail on the coffin. The biggest thing when it comes to repeat loyalty and kind of what Grish was talking about, that builds your brand. That's the biggest thing, is creating that experience that they don't just want to come just for the purpose of a discount or an ad. It's more of a repeat clientele, and how do you re-engage with that client after they leave? That's huge when it comes to guest experience.
Yep. And Ron, by the way, had indicated to me earlier that we may hear some kids in the background, and he couldn't be held responsible. So
I tried to get rid of them, didn't work too well.
No, that's all right. You did fine. It was great. So, anyhow, I mean, I think we've kind of covered some ideas as it relates to utilizing data science in order to improve both our focus on our customer, to focus on our bottom line profits and what it is that we can do. That concept of upsell, cross sell, additional revenue, stopping the clock on the original reservation and reinitiating a new one on an OTA, assisted transaction on the front end, is a small mechanism, but it's those little things that honestly kind of key in and help organizational profits. You know, there's many folks that still have larger staffs as opposed to outsourcing portions of that. And where the Centriqe platform goes is it does identify those kinds of cost structures and compares that to industry-wide metrics so that you could come back and say, what of our cost structure could become more linear with our actual number of stays last night, number of pillows used last night, as a mechanism to cut down our overall cost. So with that, I think what I want to do is kind of open it up. Alok, you've been listening in. Is there any kind of thoughts that you'd like to put as a bow, kind of near as we come near the end of our time together?
No, thank you very much, Dave. And first of all, I appreciate all the panel members sharing their insights and thoughts. And what resonated well with me is to really look at the profitability aspect of it, because most of the hotel owners, the GMs, the management company, they're measured on the profitability. What they keep telling me that we need to impact on the gross operating profit. And there are only two ways to impact on GOP is to sell more, satisfy the customer more so that they come directly to you, and to reduce the cost of operation as much as you can, then only we can be able to show the profitability. Now, Mr. Bindra talked about it, Ron talked about it, and I'm so glad that they are now really testing Centriqe platform to reap that benefits. Now, we have really thought through that data is revealing that customer, the guests, they are going to patronize hotel if we take care of them when they come in or before they come in. And Greece mentioned about it repeatedly. Can we percolate down to the mid-size hotel who are really, really pressed with their profitability challenges? Now, I am really, sometimes get very, very, moved when I see hotel closing down, shutting down, and they're bleeding in terms of their profitability challenges. We are more than keen to engage to give the positive impact on that, because we can go directly to their existing guests. They do have a good amount of data, and we can nurture, we can really target, we can personalize, we can get them back to book the hotel room directly. And why to get away? Why to really part away that 20% margin on OTAs? So slowly, slowly, if we work on that, we will show the positive impact on the revenue and profitability right from the second month onwards.
Mm-hmm.
Ron was talking about, which Mr. Binda was talking about it. And that is what our philosophy is. Go back on to people, go back on the customer, because ultimately customers and guests will pay our salary checks. If we keep them happy and delighted, they will come back, come what may. They will experience that delight which you have given in the past. And on the same note, if you tell the owners before that this is what you need to do, corrective, prescriptive. Now, are we able to guide Mr. Bindra that you need to do this in terms of hand notes, in terms of SMS messages, that if you want to have this much of GOP this month based on this much of occupancy rate or RevPAR, how should you do that? We have to handhold to that level. That is what the prescriptive guidance which Don is talking about. We are not just going to give the dashboard, but we will also give the entire prescriptive alert notification to Mr. Bindra and to Ron, because Ron is going to be measured on the profitability which he's going to manage the property. Is he guided by Centric system? If answer is yes, he will go implement everywhere to show the value to the business owners who are trusting Signum Hotels to manage their properties, right? So that's the unique value on which we are building Centric platform. And I'm so proud that all this ecosystem of Oracle and Signum, Surya Hotel, and likewise many organizations are trusting us as we go. Dave, back to you.
Yep, thank you. Grace, did you have anything you wanted to add here? You came on?
Well, all I wanted to say was, like I said, the sum up of the whole thing is that recognition is the key, and this is one way that one can recognize our customers, and that's what is the bottom line and the icing on the cake. So I think we need to carry on, with our head held high and keep at it and keep getting data in, which is very important for us to move forward. And I'm sure we'll go great. Thank you.
Oh, no,
And
that's. Oh,
And
go ahead.
Dave, I might like to add here, since Surya Hotel is running on Oracle Opera Suites, there are a few folks from Oracle as well. We are building up the integration with Opera. So this is great news for Hotel Surya and likewise many Oracle Opera existing customers. Because all hotel owners, ultimately, they are dependent on the PMS for the guest history, reservation,
True.
F&B, whatnot. And if we have the handshake integration with Opera and likewise IDS or Jubo or Lucid, all of those PMS systems which Centric is building one after another. So I'm committing to Oracle first to build the integration so that Surya should reap the benefits, not only in the real time to know which guests have made the booking, from which OTA they are coming, and how that can be personalized based on their behavioral pattern. And then onwards, we will start really giving them corrective guidance. With Market Basket, as we talked about, we can promote before even they arrive at the property. So
Sure.
we can package the banqueting, we can package their F&B, we can package all of those, what Mr. Binder was talking about. So that's a good way to really give the profitability metrics every month on month. And Mr. Binder will be proud that we will be showing him not only by graph and charts, but active intelligence alerts coming in. This guest needs this. Have you taken care of? This
Yep.
much guests have given contribution on the margin. Are you taking care of that? That is what he is looking at this point in time as VP operation for Surya.
I think many folks that have been in the industry for a period of time try to think about these relationships and say, well, we do this, then this always happens. But I think still too many businesses, whether they're retail organizations, because we do some work in the retail area as well, run by gut feel. And you know what? There's something comforting around the idea of having the underlying data behind the scenes, and then you can run by empirical evidence and empirical data, and really drive the ship confidently into the future, as opposed to trying different things until you find the magic bullet. So we try to enable organizations to use data to maximum advantage to improve their underlying profits, and to as important as that is, and that is very, very important, to also create those kind of great guest experiences so that they become repeat customers. Because at the end of the day, we're really in a position to help organizations keep those employees and keep those businesses viable and operating into the future. I've taken a quick look. I did not see any submitted questions, so I think we're coming near the end of our period of time. Donna, I don't want to put you on the spot. Are there any last minute thoughts as you kind of listened to us wrapping up here today?
So Dave, mostly most of the business owners are asking me personally that how much time do you think it will take to implement Centric Profit Edge? And what are the prerequisites for setting up or implementing Profit Edge? So we always come from the background of the technology. So data is important. We need to fetch data in real time. So you need to have a trust on the cloud technology, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure is our chosen platform. So we built everything on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. We will integrate your data with Oracle Cloud, which is trusted, secured, and robust. Now, if you are sharing data seamlessly, which others have, you will see the result in months and weeks. So 30 days flat, we ensure that you will be integrated with Centriqe engine, with your data, and then we'll start showing you the predictive guidance. Now, if you commit 30 days, then system starts learning from that day onwards because we are accessing your data in real time, periodic, every day end. And then after, machine starts working on its own. So I'm ensuring Signum Hotel Group because I remember Signum signed the contract with us just on the profit edge. They said that all the other tooling we do have, but Alak, you are hitting the nail by giving us the profitability guidance every month on which we are measured by property owners. Now that is what they are going to get. Similarly, when I talk to Mr. Bindra, he keeps telling me that we are really bleeding. Now help us to show the profitability. And that is where I am committing to Hotel Surya that if we integrate with Oracle Opera, and given that, let's say, data access, even if we have not integrated, you can give us the access as a batch upload, which we have done for others. From there onwards, we will build the data model, which Don has done, and we'll show you the result 30 days onwards. That is what I can ensure all
Yeah,
our
this
listeners.
I think the message is critically important for everyone on the phone to know that this is not a 18-month project. This will come up much faster than this. It does have to do with whether or not we've seen the property management system before and whether or not we have that existing platform, and then also how much we want to do in terms of links back to the financial system. But we can begin adding value really within the first 30 days, and then it just gets better thereafter. So I think we're kind of, Ron, you kind of came back on. I don't know if it's quiet in your house, but I think we're about ready to wrap up. Do you have any final thoughts before we sign off?
No, one thing I want to mention is just kind of touch point on Gresh when you mentioned an acronym. The acronym I like to use for Centriqe is SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely, which is huge when it comes to building that brand and that hospitality sector feel. You want to make sure that with the correct modes and procedures, you're more so reactive, and you can make sure that you can make timely decisions when it comes to, again, how to comprehend certain reactions. So for instance, that 4 out of 10 star, having that quick bot that turns around and assists you on that and then pushes the property to the next level.
Mm-hmm. Hugely important. You came up with the acronym, which means if you open a hotel in Cincinnati, Ohio, I'm taking you out to dinner. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it. So,
Thank you.
okay. So, Don, any last minute thoughts, or we'll sign this thing off? We got about 4 minutes to go.
Just the one thing Alex said that jumped out at me is starting learning. It starts as soon as those first rows of data are loaded, we start learning, and it's just a matter of time before the results give us that prescriptive and predictive analysis.
All right, terrific. Well, again, everybody, I really do appreciate you and Ron and Gresh, you as well, taking some time out of your calendar. I know, Gresh, it's near the end of your day today, but appreciate everyone participating in today's webinar. We'll be showing additional details associated with this. If you've got an interest in this area, take a look at our website and click on the links to learn more. And we'll be happy to work with any of the hospitality organizations across the world, either through one of our partners or direct, to bring some of this technology into your property, into your environment. And with that, if there's, again, any questions, just reach out to us through our underlying website and we'll be able to respond within the next couple of days. With that, I'm going to go ahead and conclude our webinar. But again, my great appreciation for everyone for taking the time to participate. And I look forward to working with you. Don, thanks. Gresh, Ron, thanks. Alak, you as well. We'll talk to you all soon. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dave.